Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures. And today we're going to be doing another episode of our Planet Zoo mod spotlights, where we take a look at some of the wonderful animals we share our world with. And today we've got what I'm going to dub as the Catfish special. So we've got lots and lots of catfish to cover today. Who doesn't love a good amount of catfish? So everything from our first animal here to the seventh animal is all going to be done by the dream team, Leaf and Buffzoo, Mr. Fishman. I do love Buffzoo. He makes some wonderful fish, and I think he really fleshes out a lot of the animals that I get to talk about on these mod spotlights, because I love talking about all sorts of cool animals and learning as well. Because I don't know as much as about fish that I would like, but I'm always learning more, so that's really all you can do. But yeah, we're going to be starting off today. We are going to be having a look at the black wedge butterfly fish, as you can kind of see here. Let me just put that down. Let's have a look at the little guys. A little bit hard to see, but these guys are the black wedged butterfly fish. You can kind of tell how they get their name, because they have this really big black stripe that they've got on their back. That's big and black, and it looks like a wedge, so that's how they get their name. It's kind of self-explanatory, but really, really awesome. So, these guys, typically, as you can see, they have this white body with, like, yellow fins and some dark black markings along the way. And in terms of their general size, they reach about 20 centimeters or 7.9 inches long. And in terms of the habitat, they generally live in the Indian Ocean and are found along the East African coast between Kenya and South Africa, and Madagascar as well. And they are also seen like other Western and Central countries in the Indian Ocean, such as Sri Lanka, Southern India, and the Nicobar and Andaman Islands. And as for the West, they've been found in Java, the Kenling or the Cocoa Islands, and parts of Australia. So they're quite a wide-ranging species. Typically, in their habitat, they are typically found at depths of about 1 to 15 meters, so that's 3.3 to 49.2 feet, and are generally found at the edges of reefs and upper slopes, with their habitats normally with strong currents that allow the juveniles to hide among the corals. They're typically seen in pairs or small groups that could be up to about 20 individuals. Their diet typically makes up of polyps, worms, sea anemones, crustaceans, sponges, the feet of sea urchins, and other types of smaller vertebrates. They're pretty generalist in that regard. They also form distant pairs to breed, and the pelagic eggs are scattered across the water. So when they breed, the eggs are kind of just thrown out into the ocean, where they go out and grow up and then come back to the reefs. That's part of the reason they're allowed to spread so far. So yeah, really cool little fish. They are considered least concerned, since they're quite a widespread and common fish, and there doesn't seem to be any big issues with them, unless you count like coral bleaching and things like that could be hurting their populations, general pollution, kind of the more general things that don't seem to be hitting the species too hard, but I still think they're really, really wonderful. And it came out wonderfully, done by Leaf and Buffzoo. And I don't want to say that all the times of the episode, so everything from this guy to this guy is done by Buffzoo and Leaf. So next animal, we got starting off with our first catfish, and we've got a cool little guy here. We have got the giraffe catfish. So you know he's got not got a long neck like a giraffe, but we'll explain his name. So this guy is one of the many species of African catfish we've got here today, where they eat kind of plants off the floors of lakes and streams. These guys are found throughout Africa, typically in lakes and rivers, and partly due to the introduction and establishment in some areas. So they've kind of been introduced to some areas and things like that. They've been found in many important lakes or rivers, such as the Nile or Lake Chad. And its distribution includes bodies of water from East Africa to West Africa, and they generally prefer to live in shallow water with muddy bottoms. So they do like those muddy bottoms, so they can kind of hide and forage through that. These guys are actually quite large as well. They get a maximum size of 2 to 3 feet, or between 2 or 3 feet, so they can get quite large. And the reason they get the name the giraffe catfish is that this molted pattern that looks, if you can see there, looks almost like a giraffe. And as it ages, it kind of fades into like a two-toned mottled brown. And there actually has been various subspecies of this species described. but obviously there's with variation in things, but obviously with subspecies it can get complicated. In terms of reproduction, the eggs are scattered in a nest, and the nest is guarded by the male. They often take advantage of the care, and they allow the male giraffe fish to take care of its eggs and young. And this is like an intra-Pacific breeding, which brood care, which is pretty cool. It's like another species. It's called Diopterus cunningtoni, so that's its interspecies breeding care. So that species will take advantage and allow the male catfish to hold their eggs. So basically raising the eggs of two species. It's parasitism. It's something like cuckoos do. So that's a good example. And the relationship to humans, they're actually occasionally imported for the aquarium trade. And because of their large ventral size and their growth rates, they are inappropriate for obviously small aquariums since they get quite big. They are pretty hardy. They'll accept a variety of foods and tolerate a variety of water conditions. And they will scavenge the aquarium looking for food, and which can cause the uprooting of plants, so you've got to be careful with that. And they're also a important food fish in Africa, with a lot of people eating them and potentially a lot of other animals eating them for prey. It's not a really, really cool animal. I love the name of it. I love its long kind of whiskers it's got. I think it's a really beautiful looking fish, if I'll be completely honest. Really do enjoy it. So, again, done by Leaf and Buffzoo. We have got next another big African catfish, I believe, the Camber catfish. So let's have a look at this guy. We'll have a look at the one in the water. Quite a big guy. So these guys are found in tropical waters and freshwater as well. They're found throughout the Congo River and other freshwater rivers across Africa. Generally, their size, they're quite big. Their maximum length is considered about 150 centimeters total length, so about 1.5 meters. And the maximum published weight is about 135 kilograms. So that's pretty big. I think that's about 297 pounds. And they are considered least concern, so they are quite common, but there's actually not much published on them, unfortunately. And in terms of CITES, they're not evaluated, and they actually are potentially venomous, so that's also very interesting. Kind of wish there was a little bit more to tell about this guy, but there really isn't. Yeah, we don't know too much about their biology or mating behavior, at least don't have too much on it itself, since areas like that are quite hard to study, but I think this is still a wonderful fish. Kind of wish I could find more information on it, but I can't really, but that's okay. That's from Leaf and Buffzoo, did another wonderful catfish. I think he's a wonderful looking catfish as well, quite big as well, so it really gives another big catfish for you to play with. And next we've got from the Camber catfish, we've got the Vundu catfish, also done by Leaf and Buffzoo. Let's have a look at these wonderful guys down here. So these guys, Heterobractus longfinus, are a species of large air-breathing catfish. They're found widely across rivers and freshwater habitats as from sub-Saharan Africa, and also found in the Nile. They're also called the Sampo, the Kur, the Lenda, or the Cetra. These guys are actually the largest true freshwater fish in Southern Africa. They typically reach about 1.5 meters long, or about 5 feet, and weigh about 55 kilograms, 121 pounds, with bull sharks kind of taking the title as the largest fish that lives in freshwater. But these guys are the largest true freshwater fish. They actually, unlike a lot of catfish, they have a large dorsal, second dorsal fin, or the adipose fins, unlike a lot of catfish. And these guys, in terms of the colour, you can see they're kind of dark olive with lighter underbelly, and the fins are usually light brown as well, as you can see here. In aquaculture, they're actually often hybridized with other species of catfish, like the African sharp-toothed catfish. In terms of the habitat, as it's simpler to mention, they live in a wide variety of freshwater habitats and rivers across sub-Saharan Africa. They've been known to the Nile. They're also found in the Niger River, the Gambia River, Lake Chad, Congo River Basin, Lake Rukandi, Lake Kariba, Zambezi River, Lake Edward, and Lake Tanganyika. So quite common in those, well, not quite common, but quite widespread. They're generally uncommon, but not considered to be locally threatened. They're just a naturally not a common species in the ecosystem. or possibly just not commonly seen because they are nocturnal, and they feed mostly at night and feed on pretty much whatever available food they can get their mouths around, such as invertebrates, insects when they are small, but as they grow larger they'll feed on large vertebrates, small vertebrates like fish and small mammals, small birds, things like that, pretty much whatever they get their mouths around. And they will also scavenge off large carcasses from riverside villages as well, so they are scavengers. They can also live for quite a long time. They can live for about 12 or more years and can actually survive out of water for extended periods of time due to being air breathers. That's also really cool. And their eating habits also affect many aspects of their lives. It includes their growth, their body mineral composition, and their feeding efficiency. And if they are raised in captivity and fed soy-based or cotton-based meal, their growth will be greatly reduced. And changing this diet practically is okay, but changing it completely is detrimental to an extent because of the lack of protein will be given in a percentage meal. So it's good if you're raising these guys in captivity, especially if they're farmed, is to give them a varied diet since that's what they're used to in the wild. And is feed them cotton and things, obviously that kind of reduces their growth. But yeah, really wonderful catfish. I think these guys are so cool. I like how they hang up the bottom. Because these guys, a lot of these catfish are based on the hippo, so they walk around the bottom. So that's really, really cool. Okay, but anyway, next catfish. New day, new catfish. And now we've got a South American catfish. So that's really, really cool. So we have got the tiger catfish, or the tiger subornum catfish. So one of the kind of species. A really beautiful guy here. So these guys are genus with 8 species. These guys are also called the tiger Sorubim, as the full species name, along with the other 8 species within the genus. And they can grow to about 1.3 meters or 4.5 feet long and weigh about 40 kilograms or 88 pounds, and are found naturally in a lot of rivers in South America, such as the Amazon or the Orinoco rivers. You can see they get their name, the tiger Sorubim catfish, because they have these patterns on them that kind of resemble a tiger, these really cool stripes. And their coloration will also depend on the type of water they're in and things like that, and also the vegetation they'll eat, such as because they will feed a lot on aquatic vegetation. In terms of being introduced, they've been introduced to places like Thailand for game fishing, for example, and they actually are considered a pretty beautiful catch, which is pretty cool. They typically live, as I mentioned, in the flooded forests of the Amazon and the Orinoco. So they will kind of hang out at the bottom of these lakes for food items. And then they will... and they're also generally active during the dark, and they prefer to spend their days hidden under stones and rocks and things to hide. And they have these bardules, similar to like all the other catfish, also known as whiskers. They protrude from their mouth to help them locate their prey in kind of turbulent or dark water. And you can see they have these small eyes, so they mainly rely on their smell and their barbules that they'll use to feel around. And yeah, really popular fish, at least in Thailand, and they're considered least concern, I believe. They are, considered, they're introduced in Thailand and a lot of other places, but in their wild range they seem to be doing quite well. Obviously being big in the Amazon. Really, really cool fish. Another great one done by Leif and Buffzoo. And we've got another catfish. So this will be our last catfish of the day, and potentially one of the most famous and one of my favorite catfish. We have got the Ripsaw catfish, which is a really cool catfish I've got to show off here. Where are they? They've got to be here. So there they are. Cheeky little buggers. Look at these wonderful guys. So this is the Ripsaw catfish, which is a species of thorny catfish, also native to the Amazon, Esquisito, São Francisco basins, and they're found in places such as Bolivia, Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, Guyana, Peru, and Venezuela. They're quite big. They get to a length of about 100 centimeters or 39 inches snout length, and they can weigh up to 13 kilograms or 29 pounds. They have been considered a minor component of local fisheries, but they have these lateral thorns. So this is their lateral line. This is what they have a bunch of nerves and stuff in here that allow them to orientate themselves in the water. And here they've got a lateral line of like thorns, as you can see here, which is pretty dangerous. It's kind of used for protection, so they can like damage a person pretty bad with their rips as they try to hold them on their side. It can actually hurt someone pretty badly. And obviously predators know this, so they don't really eat them. And how they feed is that they will sift through the sand and detect edible parts with their taste receptors and just filter through and eat it. So in terms of their habitat, they occur in like muds or in streams and lakes, and they're known to live in temperatures ranging from 24 to 29 degrees or 75 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit, and a pH ranging from 5 to 9 and an alkalinity ranging from 42 to 142. And they're also known to live in schools, so they are social, and they feed on detritus, cryomoid, and ephemerodendron larvae, so they feed a lot on small organisms, as long as crustaceans as well, so they're pretty generalist in that regard. They'll feed on a lot of things. Look, this is a wonderful catfish. I'm a big fan of these ripsaws. They're actually a pretty common aquarium fish as well, and they go by many names, including the black talking catfish, the razorback catfish, the mother of snails catfish. And they can grow to a large size, so they're obviously not for someone that wants to have a small aquarium. Being a meter-long fish, they do need a pretty large aquarium. They're also pretty light-shy, so they prefer to hang out in sheltered areas. And they are peaceful, but very small tank minks can be at risk of being eaten if they're obviously small enough to be eaten. And they will also readily accept prepared foods and have actually not been bred under aquarium conditions, so most likely new ones are going to be wild caught. But still a really, really cool animal. I think he looks cool. I love the ripsaws. Very interesting fish. And one thing about his name is Oxydorus niger. That's its scientific name, also known as kind of like the black adoratid is another common name for it. So, really cool animal we got here. So now we're going to move on to our last animal by Leaf and Buffzoo, and it's not a catfish this time. We've got a stingray. So how can you not love a good stingray? They're all hanging out on the water outside now, but here's a wonderful guy having a little swim around. So this is the Ornate river stingray, also known as the peacock eye stingray or the black river stingray. They're a species of freshwater stingray that lives around the Rio de la Plata, the Amazon, the Orinoco, and the Maranham basins, which are in tropical and subtropical regions of South America, and also sometimes kept in aquariums. These guys as well, they've had a bit of a taxonomic revolution, you could say, or revision. They've been split into quite a few species, actually. I believe that there's a species complex of about 4 or 5 species that hasn't been quite sorted through yet, but still really cool guys, so there could potentially be quite a few species. In terms of how they look and their size, they can grow to about 50 centimeters or 1.6 feet in their disc width, so about from here to here to the end of their disc. They're also about 35 kilograms or 77 pounds in weight. This disc is generally, like other stingrays, round in shape, and they have the dorsal color that's like brown with numerous yellow-orange spots that you can see there with the darker rings around them. And the exact color and species can actually be used to identify individuals and populations, which is pretty cool. And they seem to have some differences between different populations, like some will have a chain line pattern in some areas, while others, I think it's a really cool way to distinguish populations. And in terms of in captivity, oh, there's a bug on me. They kind of sometimes kept in captivity, and they have requirements similar to other stingrays. And they're actually one of the more popular species of freshwater stingrays, but require a very large tank, so they're not for your average keeper, like most of these other large fish. If you don't have a fish tank that's bigger than like 1,000 gallons, you probably shouldn't be having these guys. But yeah, this is our last mod by Leaf and Buffzoo. Really nice talking about all these cool fish. But now we've got a mod by Leaf and Diddums. So this one definitely has my seal of approval. We have got the ringed seal by Leaf and Diddums. Really wonderful animals here. Look at these cute little guys. Clearly having a good time. Let's see if you can find one swimming. Where's one swimming? Oh, there's one swimming. Beautiful, beautiful. So these guys are an airless seal that live around the Arctic and subantarctic areas. They're also relatively small, They really get more than 1.5 meters long, or about 5 feet long. I think that's about right. With a distinctive pattern, as you can see, these dark spots with these light grey rings that give their name the ring seal. They're also one of the most abundant and wide-ranging seals in the Northern Hemisphere, and they can be found from the Arctic Ocean into the Bering Sea, the Okhotsk Sea from Japan, and in the Pacific, also found Greenland and Newfoundland, so they're quite widely ranging. And they also include 2 subspecies that are found in Northern Europe that are actually freshwater, so that's also pretty cool. These guys are also primarily prey for animals such as polar bears and killer whales. And being the smallest and most abundant member that lives in there, they have an average lifespan of about 40 years, and its diet is mostly based on Arctic cod and platonic crustaceans, and typically getting about 5 feet long. The ring seal is known to be solitary, and their biggest threat actually has been, obviously because of climate change, changing temperatures in the Arctic with declines in sea ice, and due to the warming ocean has made it tougher for seals to find refuge and rest. And they actually potentially thrive due to these, due to the warming, considering the early extinction of their predators, but we kind of really don't know for sure. Ecology is much more complicated than that. Again, as mentioned, they're the most smaller seal. Their adult size gets about 100 to 175 centimeters, or 30.9.5 to 69 inches, and weigh between 32 and 140 kilograms, or 71 to 309 pounds. And yeah, there's a couple subspecies that live in a couple, like some live around the Arctic, some are kind of live at the Baltic Sea, and another 2 live in like small freshwater areas such as Finland and Lake Ladoga, and also Lake Saimaa in Finland. And these guys, as I mentioned, they kind of recur across the Baltic Sea and the Bering Sea and the Hudson Bay, quite long, wide areas. In terms of their gestation and reproduction, we'll talk about the babies while we go on about that. These guys reach sexual maturity at about 4 years old, while the males not mature about 7 years old. So it's the females at 4, males at 7. During the spring breeding season, the females will construct layers within the thick ice to give birth. And often a single pup is born on these ice floes, and during March or April after a 9-month gestation. And the pups are weaned after about 1 month old, and they build up a thick layer of blubber to keep themselves warm. The females usually begin mating at about late April, and males will roam the ice for a mate and kind of do his own thing. And as I mentioned, in terms of diet, they kind of have a wide variety of prey, from like fish to vertebrates, also like cod, herring, smelts, whitefish, perch, and crustaceans. Very, very generalist. And in terms of predators, they're quite a common food item for the polar bear, but also pups will be fed on by gulls and Arctic foxes. And actually, they've been seen pups and have been taken by killer whales, Greenland sharks, and occasionally Arctic walruses, which is pretty gruesome. And in terms of human interaction, they're also quite a common food item for the Inuit peoples and the other peoples living in the Arctic. Especially like early Paleo Eskimo populations in the Arctic Canada has been showing that they've been eating ring seals for like at least 3,500 years, which is pretty cool, or 4,000 years. And they are considered least concerns as they are quite common, though I believe some populations are considered threatened to some extent. But they're obviously managed because they are a resource, especially for the Inuit people there, since a lot of them rely on them. And again, the climate change has been a big issue for these guys. And it means they couldn't possibly be able not to make their dens, but also their predators might go extinct before they do if we have rampant climate change, which we obviously don't want polar bears to go extinct. But really, really wonderful, cute little seals here. And I'm glad someone's been making more seals, because I love seals. I got my seal of approval, of course. So yeah, that was by Leaf and Didums, and our last one was done by, this is an extinct animal, I know you guys loved your extinct animals. We have got, by Leaf, Buffzoo, and Hendrix, we have got Ophthalmosaurus, so another extinct animal for you guys. So look at these wonderful guys here, with his mouth open. So this is Ophthalmosaurus, which means eye lizard in Greek. These guys are an ichthyosaur that come from the late Jurassic period, about 165 to 150 million years ago, with possible remains from the Cretaceous. And they got their name Ophthalmosaurus because they have very, very large eyes. And they get to about 6 meters long, or 20 feet, and they have these like long dolphin-shaped bodies with small teeth, but quite robust teeth. And they have been found across Europe, but there's also a second species that may be found in North America, so it's also very interesting. So in terms of their size, as I mentioned, they're like a medium-sized ichthyosaur with a streamlined, robust body, and similar to other derived ichthyosaurs. And they were discovered by Harry Seal in 1874, and was kind of one of those first big discoveries. It shows they're actually more related to, they consider like Moliosaurus, considered a valid genus of the group, the Ophthalmosaurids. So that's very interesting. A lot of text that even goes with these guys. In terms of their paleobiology, it's believed that they had small teeth with these tooth crowns, which differs notably from other species such as Platypterus, which is quite a large, like almost predatory version of a ichthyosaur. Also like Temnontosaurus as well. These guys, from their tooth morphology, indicates these guys were most likely a generalist predator feeding on a wide variety of food items, just whatever they can get their mouths around. And these guys are believed to have been able to dive for at least 20 minutes. There's the baby. I want to show off the baby because he's quite cute. They also had a cruising speed that's estimated to be about 1 meter per second. And they could potentially reach depths of up to 600 meters or 2,000 feet or more during a dive, which is in the mesopelagic zone. And however, while studies have suggested this feat is physically possible, studies show that actually this environment may actually not be... The environment where they've been preserved in actually probably was not actually that deep, and may have been relatively shallow. But they also had these large eyes, is believed to be because they may have been hunting at night, or being a deep diver has kind of been estimated. They kind of use these large eyes to find prey, similar to something like a giant squid, since they didn't have the echolocation of a whale. But yeah, still really, really cool guys. And one thing we know about these guys is that they gave live birth. So a lot of these babies, there's actually remains of an ichthyosaur. I don't believe it's Ophthalmosaurus itself, but it's a relative of these guys that actually had a bunch of pups inside it and died while giving birth. So we know that the babies were born tail first, like modern mammals, like whales and dolphins, because if they were born head first, they would drown before they were born. So that's a cool little thing that we know about these guys, and they're a great example of convergent evolution, since they swim kind of like an eel or a shark, but they look very much like a dolphin. It's very much convergent evolution, so I think that's very, very interesting. But yeah, I think this is a good place to end the video now. I think we did a good job. So, shorter one today, but I don't mind. Nice to see a wide variety of animals. So yeah, I really, really, really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to hit that little bell icon to get notified about anything. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye.